The workshop door burst open. A 7-year-old girl rushed in, her face covered in mud and rain. "Mister, help my mom! They're hurting her!" Her voice trembled, breaking with sobs. Ryan was wiping oil from his hands, frozen in the cold yellow light. He knelt down, gripping her shoulders. "Where's your mom?" Before she could answer, 2 men in black jackets stormed in behind her, carrying clubs. Ryan's SEAL instincts kicked in. He blocked the strike, took down both men. The girl screamed, "My mom's outside! They locked her in the car!" He ran out and found a woman tied up beside the wheel, her face covered in mud. "Who did this?" "People from Heart Dynamics. I know their secrets." She passed out, her hand still gripping his jacket. He said quietly, "Hold on tight. You're both going to live." Ryan Miller was 38 years old, a former Navy SEAL now living on the outskirts of Seattle, working as a mechanic in a small shop he'd built himself. He had lost his wife in a classified special operations accident, left only with memories and a scar on his left shoulder. He raised his son Ethan, 10 years old, a clever boy who loved building helicopter models from scrap materials. Their house and workshop were simple, covered in oil stains, but always filled with quiet laughter and the smell of coffee. One rainy afternoon, Ethan was sleeping in the corner when the door burst open and a strange little girl rushed in crying for help. Ryan reacted like he always had. Protect, observe, act. He saved the girl's mother from the black SUV. The woman had been beaten, her clothes covered in mud, her face familiar. She was Elena Hart, 35 years old, CEO of Heart Dynamics, a corporation that manufactured military aircraft components. When he carried her inside, she opened her eyes weakly. "You used to work at Heart, didn't you?" Her voice trembled. He only replied, "Be quiet now, you're safe." The little girl, Leah Hart, 7 years old, clung tightly to Ryan's hand, crying and shaking. He brought mother and daughter inside, wrapped them in blankets, and bandaged their wounds. Ethan looked at Leah, gave her his own jacket, and said softly, "Don't be scared. No one can find you here." On the workshop wall were pencil marks measuring height. Ethan, 8 years old. Leah touched them with her hand, staring in a daze. Elena whispered, "You still do things the same way. Save first, ask questions later." Ryan only replied, "I failed once when I couldn't save someone in time." The rain hammered against the metal roof all night. Ryan had converted an old aircraft hangar into his workshop and home, a space that smelled of engine oil and welding smoke. It wasn't much, but it was honest work, and it kept him close to the machines he understood better than people. He'd left the Navy 6 years ago after his wife Sarah died. The mission details were classified, but the outcome wasn't. She had been a combat medic caught in an ambush while evacuating wounded soldiers. Ryan had been stateside that day, training new recruits, safe and useless, while the woman he loved bled out half a world away. The guilt had nearly destroyed him. He'd thrown himself into dangerous missions afterward, taking risks that made his commanders nervous, until they'd quietly suggested he consider retirement. For Ethan's sake, they said. The boy had already lost his mother. He couldn't lose his father too. So Ryan had walked away from the only life he'd known and built this workshop. Simple repairs, honest work, a quiet existence raising his son. He thought he had left the war behind. Then Leah Hart crashed through his door, and the war came back to find him. Now he stood watch through the night, his old service pistol within reach, scanning the darkness for headlights or movement. The men who had taken Elena weren't amateurs. They were organized, well-funded, and clearly willing to kill to protect whatever secrets Elena had discovered. Through the workshop window, he could see Leah curled up next to her mother on the old couch, both finally sleeping after the terror of the day. Ethan had given up his own bed for them, choosing instead to sleep on a cot near his father, ready to help if needed. Ryan felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders. These people were under his protection now. And unlike 6 years ago, unlike the day Sarah died, he was here. He could act. He could make a difference. He just had to figure out who wanted Elena Hart dead and why. The rain continued its steady drumming on the roof, washing away the blood and mud from the day's violence, but not the questions that kept Ryan awake through the long, dark hours. That night, Ryan stayed awake guarding the workshop door, the rain falling heavily outside. Leah slept curled up beside her mother, her small hands still clutching his jacket sleeve. At dawn, as thunder faded and the first light filtered through the rusty iron-framed windows, Ryan stood up, put on his jacket, and made coffee. In the morning, Ethan woke early, saw Leah sitting listlessly, and pulled up a chair to draw helicopter models with her. The two children scribbled on paper together. Safe Sky, the name of an old operation Ryan once commanded. He saw it and froze for a moment. "That's a good name," he said quietly. At noon, Elena woke up, her face tired but her eyes bright. "Why did you help me?" "Because your daughter trusted me." She hesitated. "Did you work at Heart Dynamics?" "No, I fix what they destroy." Elena sighed and explained that she was being hunted because she kept internal evidence. "They're selling military engine designs. I have the originals." Ryan fell silent, his hand resting on his coffee cup, his gaze distant. In the afternoon, the rain stopped and yellow sunlight spread across the damp concrete floor. Leah and Ethan played near the workshop entrance, their clear laughter ringing out. Elena sat by the window frame, watching Ryan weld steel frames. "You're still the same. Don't talk much, just do the right thing." Ryan didn't look up. Many people die because the right thing wasn't done in time. In the evening, after both children had fallen asleep, Elena came out to the workshop and found him still sitting there. "Aren't you going to ask me anything else?" she asked. "I don't need to ask to know who's afraid." Elena fell silent, the yellow light illuminating both their tired but determined faces. Over the next few days, a routine formed. Ryan taught Ethan and Leah basic safety protocols, the kind of awareness training he'd learned in the SEALs. How to recognize when someone was following you. What to do if separated from adults. Where the emergency exits were in any building. Leah absorbed it all with surprising seriousness. "My mom taught me to always be aware," she explained. "She said danger doesn't announce itself." "Your mom is smart," Ryan replied. Elena, meanwhile, worked on strengthening her case. She had copies of files on a secure drive hidden in Leah's stuffed bear, the one thing the attackers hadn't searched. The files showed years of illegal arms deals, falsified safety reports, and bribes to military procurement officers. "Mark Renner orchestrated all of it," she told Ryan over coffee one evening. "My VP of operations. I hired him 3 years ago. I thought he was brilliant. Turns out he was just corrupt." "How did you find out?" "An engineer came to me with concerns about modified designs being sent to foreign buyers. Designs that shouldn't exist outside classified channels. I started investigating quietly. That's when Renner realized I knew and decided to eliminate the problem. He gave me a choice: look the other way and keep my position, or speak up and lose everything. He didn't expect me to choose the second option." Ryan looked at her with something like respect. Most people would have stayed quiet. Most people don't have a daughter watching them, learning from them. "I want Leah to see that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Through the window, they could see Leah and Ethan working on a new drawing together, their heads bent close in concentration. "They're good for each other," Elena observed. "Ethan's teaching her how to be a kid again. She's been so serious since her father died 2 years ago. Always worried, always watching over them." "How did he die?" "Car accident. But now I wonder if it really was an accident. He was Heart Dynamics' chief engineer. He might have known what Renner was doing." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You think Renner killed him?" "I think it's possible, and that's another reason I can't let this go. If David was murdered, he deserves justice. Leah deserves to know the truth." The weight of it settled between them. This wasn't just corporate fraud. It was potentially murder, treason, and a conspiracy that reached deep into military contracting circles. "You realize they won't stop," Ryan said. "Renner has too much at stake. He'll send more people, better people." "I know. That's why I'm grateful you're here. That's why I'm grateful Leah found you." Elena looked at him directly. "But I won't ask you to risk your life for this. You've already done enough." "You didn't ask, your daughter did. And I don't ignore kids asking for help." Something shifted in Elena's expression. Sarah, your wife, she was military too, wasn't she? Ryan stiffened. How did you? I recognize the look, the guilt, the sense that you failed someone. I've seen it in the mirror enough times. Combat medic, Afghanistan, 6 years ago. I'm sorry. So am I. Ryan stood up, ending the conversation. Get some rest. Tomorrow we figure out how to take down Renner before he takes us down. But as he walked away, Elena's voice stopped him. Ryan, thank you for seeing Leah's fear instead of turning us away, for being the kind of man who still believes in saving people. He didn't turn around. Get some sleep, Elena. We've got a war to win. And in the quiet workshop, surrounded by tools and oil stains and children's drawings, that's exactly what they prepared to do. 2 days later, the news broke. CEO Elena Hart missing. Suspected kidnapping. Deputy Director Mark Renner assumed temporary control, secretly ordering Elena's assassination to silence her. Ryan knew him. Renner had been an engineer in the SEAL security training program Ryan had helped run. He and Elena planned a counterattack, infiltrate Hart Dynamics, retrieve the original data, and expose Renner. At night, Ryan put on his old SEAL jacket, embroidered with Safe Skies, his call sign. They broke in through the technical floor and retrieved the hard drive containing evidence. The alarm sounded. Security gave chase. Ryan made Elena jump into the artificial lake on the grounds while he stayed back to cover her. He was wounded in the shoulder, right on the old scar. Elena pulled him out, furious. Are you trying to sacrifice yourself again? No, I'm choosing a different way to live. They fled back to the workshop, copied the data, and sent the originals to a trusted military journalist. Renner tracked them down with 2 bodyguards. Leah hugged her mother. Ethan stood in front of Ryan. A mechanic thinks he can save the world? Renner sneered. Ryan replied, no, I'm just saving one family. He activated the cutting torch, sparks flying, smoke filling the space. Then threw a punch that dropped a Renner. Police arrived. Renner was arrested. The evidence went public. The infiltration had required precision Ryan hadn't used in years. Breaking into Hart Dynamics meant bypassing security systems, avoiding cameras, timing their movements to patrol patterns. It was second nature to a SEAL, but Elena had never done anything like it. Stay behind me. Step where I step. Don't touch anything unless I say. Ryan's instructions were clipped, professional. They moved through the building like ghosts. Elena was struck by how different he seemed in this environment. The quiet mechanic disappeared, replaced by a trained operator who moved with absolute confidence and deadly efficiency. The server room was on the 3rd floor, behind biometric locks that Elena's executive credentials could bypass. She swiped her card, praying Renner hadn't thought to deactivate her access yet. The light blinked green. They were in. 5 minutes, Ryan said, already connecting the external drive. That's how long before the security system flags the access and sends someone to check. Elena's hands shook as she navigated the file directory. So much data. Years of evidence buried in accounting spreadsheets and engineering reports. She knew where to look, had been building a mental map of the corruption for months. Got it, she whispered, copying folders. Transfer rate is slow. 4 minutes. Footsteps in the hallway. Ryan moved to the door, his body language shifting, coiled and ready. The footsteps passed. 3 minutes. The progress bar crawled forward. Elena wanted to scream at it to move faster. Everything depended on these files. Everything. 2 minutes. Elena, Ryan's voice was tight. We need to go. 30 more seconds. We don't have. The alarm shrieked. Someone had triggered it manually. Renner knows we're here, Elena said, yanking the drive free. He's watching us. Ryan grabbed her hand. Run! Numb! They sprinted through corridors, Ryan's training allowing him to navigate the maze of the building while Elena struggled to keep up. Behind them, shouts and heavy footfalls as security converged on their position. They burst onto an outdoor walkway overlooking the artificial lake, a decorative feature on the Hart Dynamics campus. Below, dark water reflected security lights. You've got to be kidding me, Elena gasped. You can't be serious. Jump or fight, your choice. But if we fight, you get hurt, and Leah loses her mother. Elena looked at the water, at the 20-foot drop, at the armed men rounding the corner behind them. She tucked the hard drive into her jacket and grabbed Ryan's hand. Together. Together. They jumped. The impact knocked the air from Elena's lungs. The water was shockingly cold. She surfaced, gasping, and saw Ryan already pulling her toward the far edge, away from the lights and the gathering security team. They climbed out soaked and shivering, ran through the perimeter woods to where Ryan had stashed his truck. By the time security figured out where they'd turned, they were miles away. At the workshop, they worked through the night uploading files to secured servers, sending copies to the journalists, to the FBI, to the Pentagon's Inspector General. By dawn, the evidence was everywhere, impossible to suppress or destroy. That's when Renner came for them, personally. He arrived with 2 private security contractors, the kind of men who asked no questions and left no witnesses. The kind Renner had likely used to kill Elena's husband. Ryan had been expecting this. He'd sent Ethan and Leah to Aunt May's house the night before, getting them to safety before the final confrontation. Now it was just him and Elena, facing down 3 armed men in the workshop that had become their fortress. "You should have taken the deal, Elena," Renner said, his voice oily with false regret. "We could have all been rich. Instead, you chose to be righteous. And look where it got you." "It got me here," Elena replied. "Alive. Free. With evidence that's going to put you in prison for the rest of your life. If you live to testify." That's when Ryan stepped forward from the shadows, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. That's the thing about SEALs. We're really good at keeping people alive. The fight was brief and brutal. Ryan's training versus hired muscle. There was no contest. Within 2 minutes, both contractors were unconscious on the workshop floor. Renner pulled a pistol, hands shaking. "I'll kill you both." Ryan moved so fast, Renner didn't have time to fire. The gun clattered across concrete as Ryan swept his legs, dropping him hard. Police sirens wailed in the distance, called by neighbors who'd heard the commotion. Ryan held Renner down, his knee on the man's back. "You lose. The evidence is out there. The people you hurt are safe. And you're finished." Elena stood over them, pulled out her CEO identification card, and dropped it on Renner's prone form. "I don't need a title to tell the truth." A month later, the Heart Dynamics scandal was exposed. Elena resigned as CEO. She opened the Safe Sky Foundation to help children whose parents served in the military. Ryan transformed his old workshop into a vocational training center, repairing vehicles and teaching survival skills to young people. Leah called him Uncle Ryan. Ethan treated Elena like family. One afternoon, they repainted the wall, adding Leah, 7 years old, next to Ethan, 8 years old. Elena laughed. "Now this wall has both of them." Ryan was silent, but his eyes were warmer. They shared apple pie Elena had baked, the smell of butter and cinnamon filling the workshop. She said, "You didn't just save me. You restored the faith I thought I'd lost." "I just fixed what's broken," Ryan replied. Leah asked, "Uncle Ryan, were you tired when you saved my mom?" "No, because every time I look at you, I remember I'm still alive." The foundation grew quickly. Elena leveraged her connections in the military contracting world, the ones who weren't corrupt, to build a network of support for Gold Star families and active duty personnel. Ryan's workshop became a gathering place. Veterans would stop by, some to help teach skills, others just to be around people who understood what they'd been through. Ethan and Leah became unofficial ambassadors, their easy friendship reminding the adults that healing was possible. One Saturday, they organized a community event. Families came to learn basic car maintenance, emergency preparedness, and other practical skills. Elena ran registration while Ryan taught. Ethan and Leah handed out tools and snacks, their laughter infectious. "You've built something special here," Elena told Ryan during a quiet moment. "Both of us have. This foundation, this workshop, this community, it matters." "It's what Sarah would have wanted," Ryan said. "She always believed in helping people rebuild. I just took me a while to remember that." "She'd be proud of you." "Maybe, I hope so." Elena watched him teach a group of teenagers how to change oil. His patience and clear explanations making a complex task seem simple. He was a natural teacher, she realized. Someone who empowered others rather than showing off his own expertise. Ryan, she said later as they cleaned up after the event, can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you really help us that night? You could have called the police, stayed out of it, but you didn't. Why? He was quiet for a long moment, organizing tools with practiced efficiency. Because Leah's voice sounded like Ethan's did the day Sarah died. Terrified, desperate, begging someone to help. And I couldn't help Sarah, but I could help Leah. I could make sure at least one child didn't lose their mother that day. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You gave us both a second chance. You gave me one too. Gave me something to fight for again. Something that mattered. They stood in the workshop as the sun set, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. The drawing Leah and Ethan had made, Safe Sky, was tacked to the wall, a daily reminder of what they were building together. Elena reached out and took Ryan's hand. Thank you for everything. He squeezed back. Thank you for trusting me, for letting me be part of this. You're more than part of it. You're the foundation it's built on. That evening, all four of them had dinner together. Just pasta and salad, nothing fancy, but it felt like family. The conversation flowed easily, jokes and stories mixing with comfortable silences. After the kids went to bed, Elena and Ryan sat on the workshop's small porch, looking out at the lights of Seattle in the distance. Do you ever think about going back? Elena asked. To the Navy, I mean. To that life? Sometimes, but then I look at what we've built here and I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Even though it's quieter, less exciting? Ryan smiled. This isn't quiet, it's just a different kind of mission. And it matters just as much, maybe more. I used to think success meant climbing the corporate ladder, Elena said. Being CEO, making deals, building an empire. But now I realize real success is this: helping people, building community, raising kids who know they're safe and loved. You're good at both, Ryan observed. The foundation is thriving because you know how to run an organization. You just redirected that skill towards something meaningful. We make a good team. We do. The moments stretched between them, full of possibility and unspoken feelings, but neither pushed. They had time, and both understood that the best things were built slowly, with care and intention. Inside, through the window, they could see the wall with both children's names marked in pencil. A small thing, but it represented something larger. A promise, a commitment, a family forming from the wreckage of their individual tragedies. Hey, Ryan, Elena said softly. Yeah? I'm glad Leah found you that night. So am I. And in the comfortable silence that followed, surrounded by the evidence of lives rebuilt and futures secured, they both understood that they had found something rare. Not just survival, but a reason to thrive. On a spring morning, sunlight filtered through the iron windows, reflecting off fresh paint. Ryan taught Leah to weld metal pipes. Elena made coffee. Ethan hung a sign reading Safe Sky Foundation. Elena asked softly, have you ever thought about staying? If you need me, I'll stay, Ryan replied. She smiled, placing her hand on his old seal ring. Then stay, for all of us. Leah shouted, Mom, Uncle Ryan is a real hero. Ryan laughed for the first time in years. Light illuminated the scrawled words, we are home. Elena said quietly, family isn't where you're born. It's where you choose, and where you choose again, every single day. Ryan replied, and today I choose to stay. 6 months had passed since that rainy night when Leah burst through his door. In that time, everything had changed and nothing had changed. Ryan still fixed engines. Elena still advocated for the vulnerable. Ethan still built models from scrap. Leah still drew pictures. But they did it all together now, as a unit, as family. The Safe Sky Foundation had grown beyond their initial dreams. They'd helped dozens of military families, provided educational scholarships, and created a support network that spanned the entire Pacific Northwest. News outlets called Elena a hero, a whistleblower who'd sacrificed everything to expose corruption. But in the workshop, she was just Elena, mom to Leah, friend to Ethan, partner to Rhino in building something that mattered. The corruption scandal had sent shockwaves through the defense industry. Mark Renner and 17 others were convicted on various charges ranging from fraud to manslaughter. The investigation into David Hart's death was reopened, and evidence suggested his accident had indeed been orchestrated. Leah took the news hard, grieving again for the father she'd lost. But this time, she wasn't alone in her grief. Ryan and Ethan were there along with her mother, creating a circle of support that helped her process the pain. Uncle Ryan says it's okay to be Pete, Leah told her therapist during the one session. He says brave people cry too. He cries sometimes when he thinks about Aunt Sarah, but he still gets up every day and helps people. That's what I want to do. One evening, as they all worked together to prepare dinner, Ethan asked the question everyone had been thinking. Are you guys going to get married? Elena nearly dropped the pot she was carrying. Ryan stopped mid-stir, wooden spoons suspended over the pasta. Leah giggled. Ethan, you can't just ask that. Why not? They're together all the time. They care about each other. Isn't that what grown-ups do? Get married? Ryan and Elena looked at each other, an entire conversation happening in that glance. There was affection there, yes, maybe even love, but also caution, respect for the journey they'd both taken to get here. Marriage is about more than just caring, Elena said carefully. It's about being ready, being sure, taking time to build something solid. How long does that take? Ethan wanted to know. As long as it takes, Ryan replied. There's no rush. What matters is doing it right. But you are staying, right? Leah's voice was small, vulnerable. Both of you? You're not going anywhere? Ryan knelt down so he was at eye level with both kids. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. You're my family. That's not changing. Mom? Leah looked at Elena. I'm staying too, baby. We all are. Together. Good, Leah said firmly, because I already drew a picture of our family, and I don't want to have to change it. Later, after the kids were asleep, Ryan and Elena stood together in the workshop, looking at the latest drawing hung on the wall. 4 stick figures holding hands, with Safe Sky Family written above them in Leah's improving handwriting. She's not wrong, you know, Elena said, about us being a family. No, she's not. So we just keep doing this, taking it one day at a time, building something real? That's exactly what we do. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder, and Ryan's arm came around her naturally, comfortably. Outside, the city lights twinkled in the distance. Inside, their workshop-turned home was warm and filled with evidence of lives well lived. I never thought I'd have this again, Ryan said quietly. After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over, that I'd just exist, not really live. And now? Now I know that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means making space for new love without erasing the old. Sarah will always be part of me, but so are you, and Leah, in this life we're building. That's beautiful, Elena whispered. It's true. They stood together in comfortable silence. 2 people who had saved each other in more ways than one, who had built a family from fragments and determination, who had chosen to stay when leaving would have been easier. On the wall, the pencil marks measured 2 children's growth. On the bulletin board, drawings documented their journey, and in the air, the smell of oil and coffee and possibility. This was home, not because of the building or the location, but because of the people who filled it with love, laughter, and purpose. Because they had chosen each other, and they would keep choosing each other every single day. The seal ring on Ryan's finger caught the light, engraved with Safe Skies. Once it had meant a military operation. Now it meant something more. A promise. A family. A future built from the ruins of the past. And in the quiet workshop, as night settled around them, they understood that the mission had changed. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were thriving. Together. If you believe that healing stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to Hidden Heart Stories. We tell the stories that should never be forgotten.